Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot, and welcome to a Soulmate Snapshot. That I got a note from one of you last night that said, I have a question that's kind of an emergency. I have. So I had to do this reading because I guarantee this is not the only person experiencing this. So they're in a conversation with their person. They haven't talked in years, okay? And it's very slow. So with some of you, this is going to resonate pretty strongly. Others of you are like, hold on, this could be me at any minute. How am I going to deal with it? Basically, they're in this conversation with their person, and it's their turn to say something, but they don't want to say the wrong thing. And so they're trying to figure out, all right, take a step back. What's the tone here? What do I need to be doing as I interact with this person? And in the past, I think we've just kind of said, hey, make sure you're being gentle, recognize that they're not necessarily going to be fully healed yet. But the question here is, how do I interact with this person? Things are completely different. The energy is completely different. Now we're having a conversation that seems like, I don't know, kind of close to one we might have had a long time ago. It's got a really, I'm not sure what to do. And of course, there's some triggering going on there. So we're going to take a look and just kind of get a feel for how it is that you can interact with your person at this time. So we know we've got that Venus retrograde going on. We know there's a lot happening, but it's not super evident how you would want to interact with your person at this time. So it's a soulmate snapshot. It's going to be one of my quicker readings. I assume it is. I never know with these what honestly how long they're going to go, but it is something that we don't tend to extend these, so I'm just going to go fast and quick through it. But the idea is we want to understand how you need to interact with your person. We'll start with that energetic backdrop, and I'm going to call it the energetic and emotional backdrop again today, like we did yesterday, because I feel like the emotional piece, I just want to welcome it to come out. Maybe that's a transition that I'll make overall, because I feel like that's something that doesn't often come out in these readings enough. So it's a matter of maybe wanting to invite it. So we've got the Four of Scrolls. This is okay, we saw this in previous readings leading up to this. You're going to get to a place, you're going to be interacting with this person. Your soul energy is so close together. You're so close together in the 5D, already in union. What do you do when the communication starts in the physical realm? What do you do in that place? So what we see here is that the healing has not been completed. That's part of the energetic and emotional backdrop right now. That's why we've got this person who is now saying, I don't want to mess this up, but I have no idea what to say. Don't know what my tone ought to be. How should I interact with this person? Gentle isn't enough for me. It's too vague. That is not what you said. I'm not gonna put those words in somebody's mouth, but that's my summary of how that feels. Okay, so information is going to come to you, but maybe not as quickly as you'd like, and it's not going to be as clear as you would necessarily like. So you're sitting there constantly trying to keep up with the amount of healing that you wish you had in order to have this conversation and this interaction. Just be aware you're both very much in this place. You're both very much working on that emotional self-mastery and the ability to have these conversations. You're both very much still thinking about what has or hasn't happened in the past. Your person is wanting to run and hide, even during this conversation. That's the edge that you're catching, and you may be as well. All of a sudden, there may be a little bit of a piece in you that says, I have no idea what to do with this. I'm not ready for it. I don't want to mess it up. That's like a little bit of a taste of your person's medicine, but it's not a big enough picture. When you run into this new soulmate that we've got, that we've seen moving your direction, that I think starts out as a friend and moves a little bit more slowly and may go to something romantic, one of the things that you're going to feel is that the feeling like you understand now why your person wanted to bail and run, because it does get pretty fear-inducing, but you may already be starting to feel it a little bit now. Either way, there's a lot of that feeling of, here are the things that didn't go well in the past. I'm not sure I'm done with that. I'm not sure how to overcome that. Here is your emotional self-mastery, but you see he's working on something. He's working on it. So this is the Eight of Pentacles is a card of mastery. In this case, it's not quite being there, but working on it actively. But again, with the Moon card in reverse and the healing that hasn't been done with the Four of Swords in reverse, this is something that you're going to be picking your way very carefully through what feels like still pretty unclear territory. it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a disorienting thing. And I completely get the sense of this question. What do I say next? What does this tone need to be? Because there's a lot going on here that now all of a sudden you're faced with this interaction. It can be difficult to understand what the best way to go is. Okay, so this impasse is staring you right in the face. This is part of the reason that I think there's a feeling of consternation and concern here, because honestly, with as long as it has taken for your person to get back to you, in some cases, some of your people are not just no response, they were slow response before they became no response. And it's hard to forget that. Like, it's hard to ignore the pieces that put you in the separation that and now you're kind of trying to navigate those. And so it's a matter of, well, what do I do? What do I say? I want to be gentle, but I want to stand up for myself, and that's the balance that you're really going to want to be able to strike. You want to be gentle, but you also want to be firm about your boundaries. And firm about your boundaries doesn't mean, being harsh or difficult about it. It just really kind of says, hey, this is it, take it or leave it, and that's a completely reasonable way to be, but it has everything to do with how you express that versus what it is that you are expressing. You have a decision to make about your actual boundaries. Okay. So I'm sitting here saying to communicate your boundaries clearly, but I needed to take a step back and say, do we even know what those boundaries are? Because with the situation of this impasse still staring you in the face, with the realization that you're still very much working through healing, still very much working through that mastery piece, and still kind of have it hanging in above you that things didn't necessarily work out the way that you would have hoped the last time. There's a decision for you to make about where you want those boundaries to be and how you want that to look. It's not an easy decision, and it's going to be different for everybody. So maybe that's something that we invite to come into question number 2, because the question is really going to be about that tone, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. We know here that you need to establish a few of those boundaries, but what does that even look like? Trusting yourself, feeling like you have the entire world in the palm of your hand, but in a balanced way, that you're there to protect it, that you're there for the good of what's happening. You're there to make sure that things move in a good way, but not to have a strong attachment one way or the other. And there's a sense of this truth staring both of you down that is probably giving you both pause, especially because it's a matter of, you realize that you're reconciling some things within yourselves that haven't truly been reconciled in the past. That's why this healing isn't done, and that's why it scares you a little bit. So it's not so much that you're unwilling to address this, it's that you are addressing this, and there's some discomfort along with that, because it's not a simple process. You're still recognizing there's some push and pull, there are some positives and some negatives. There are things that make things a little bit more difficult for you as you're trying to navigate it. Okay, so that basically fits exactly with the note that I got. I'm trying to figure out how to put this into words in a way that I think, all I would have to do is say that this is the feel of that note. This is the feel of the energy too. Even before I read the note, I was feeling, all right, so what do? You remember your person came after you in April in a lot of cases. And once they got to you, like totally flubbed it, they didn't know what to do. So they disappeared again. They reblocked you. They went kind of away. They went farther away maybe physically than they typically do, but spiritually they remained right on top of you. And so we all kind of sat here and went, all right, so what does that mean, And so this is kind of that next step. The fact that they stayed spiritually closer to you has shortened the path for making the communication that many of you are receiving. But again, with the healing not done on their side, it's super questionable as to how that goes. But the thing is, healing's not done on either side. So it's actually difficult for both of you to navigate. There's a lot of healing that you've been doing while you were in separation, them not quite as much. But it's something that's still very much continuing. And I think what we talked about in yesterday's reading was, okay, so how much of this continues to, this healing that still has to happen in separation. I don't think it's obvious. I don't think it's obvious. I think it's not going to be the same for everybody. I think some of you are going to be able to come together, have a reasonable reconciliation, and just be able to work through the rest of this. But it feels like it might be a little bit awkward, particularly with this impasse that you still haven't worked through and the feeling of that. It's almost guilt around on their part around the missed opportunity. So if you do get together and reconcile within yourselves and together kind of at the same time, that is potentially messy, but not impossible. Some of you, that's the way it's going to be able to work out. So let's get in a little bit into the question, particularly about how you need to interact. What is the tone of that? We kind of see what is driving the insecurities and the uncertainty there. But let's get some practical advice on how you can behave. So we'll get the how you behave, and then what do you need to focus on emotionally, mentally, spiritually, inside in your meditations. After that. So you got the Three of Scrolls here. Okay. All right. Clear and present pain. Clear and present pain. So we've got pain that has, when you get in your own silo, you're able to let some of that pain fall away. And the same with them, which is part of how they're able to contact you for the folks that are able to contact you. Although we know that this communication happens relatively suddenly for both of you, which means that they see themselves hit send and go, ooh, I guess I just did that. Now I'm going to, it'd be weird to unsend it, right? So the pain is still there. That's something that you're going to want to be aware of as you consider interaction, you consider communications. The healing hasn't been done, as we see, and the pain is still there. So that's part of why we want to make sure that it's gentle. But again, you want to make sure that you're maintaining the boundaries, but you may have to get in there and figure out what those boundaries look like. There's a sense of understanding what it is, a little bit more understanding of what it is that makes you happy. And same with your person. But I would say that even though we've got the Nine of Cups coming in here in the upright, it's not complete. There is still some work that has to be done on figuring out exactly what that wish fulfillment looks like. So it's a little bit like, it's nuanced. It's fine-tuning your boundaries. It's that kind of thing for you. For them, it's uncovering. So they have some idea. They have a pretty clear idea of what it is that would be a wish fulfillment, but it feels otherworldly to them because of what they'd have to destroy in order to get to it. All right, let's see here. We've got the King of Pentacles in the reverse, so they're not feeling very deserving of this right now. When they're having this conversation with you, if it feels like they're super tentative and not really sure how to process it, this is absolutely true. They're not feeling sure of themselves, and yet they're being bombarded with all of these memories from the past. So they've got like this curiosity about, with the Page of Wands, how do I come back and have this conversation? Kind of feel like I have to. Oops, I just hit send. Now I guess I'm going to. But they're trying to reconcile what's been happening in their head with the memories with reality. So wait a second now. It was really safe for me to have these memories when I wasn't actually having interaction with this person. And this is your person thinking here. They've been having these memories and these thoughts around these memories that they felt quite liberated to have because it was really just in the realm of their own thinking and in their mind. However, with the reality of very real communication, they recognize they're not sure how much of this is reality and how much of it they've built in their minds, which I think is an incredible thing to realize. They're finding it a little bit terrifying, but the curiosity continues to push them forward. So I guess understanding where they're at with this will help you to understand the pain is still there. You still have to be gentle. You are still going to have to be firm around your boundaries, but it's unclear what your boundaries are because of the changing that you've been going through. So you have some invention, some manifestation of self here. There are some things that have not yet been set into motion that they kind of feel like they have been, but here's that manifestation. Both of you got to manifest your boundaries and figure out what that looks like. So the answer is to move forward gently but tentatively. Understand that there might be another period of separation in here, and that's okay because there may be some healing that really does need to take place in separation, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're starting to get the security around yourself that you know you're going to resolve resolve, even if you don't have a chance to resolve it directly with them, you're starting to see yourself resolve things within yourself. Same thing is happening with them, and it really kind of puts some wind under this magician energy, this manifestation energy. You both really put the wind under each other's wings and are able to do more because of the energy that you surround each other with. But there's something that needs to be set in motion here, something that has not been, and that's part of the reason that it feels so clunky and awkward, even though things seem to be going relatively well in some of these conversations. And it's a matter of, how do I not screw this up? How do I make this continue to feel like a good thing and have them not run away again? And the reality is they might run away again. But yes, keep that gentle nature. Be aware that yes, they may run away again. There's definitely that sense that they might. Don't get too attached to this. But that's something that you have been learning since the separation began, not to get too attached to this, because at some point, and we wondered this in yesterday's reading. So we've got a lot of people that are suddenly all communicative. They seem much more human, much more awake. A lot of those defense mechanisms aren't popping out. So that means that there's new vulnerability coming. There's this new feeling of an ability to move towards you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stay that way. So the Venus retrograde is 42 days long, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you guys hang out in a kumbaya mode for 42 days. There is a good chance that they also feel like the pressure is too big and they kind of shrink back, but the energy hasn't gone away. So you may see them come and go a couple of times, or seem like they're vacillating on it. In any case, you are back to saving them from some of their pain, which is going to trigger them. They remember the last time you did this, the last time you were saving that, and your presence, there's nothing you can do about it. Your very presence helps to alleviate some of the pain of what's in their history. And this is way back, not some random ex. This is back in early childhood, past life kind of pressure that you helped to relieve. And they experienced this when the two of you came together. They thought it was fantastic, and almost in their mind, foolishly moved toward it. And it turns out maybe it's not a foolish movement toward it, but it is a matter of recognizing that they're easing your pain, or you're easing their pain, because you're opening it up for them to solve it. So if they can take some of this vulnerability and apply it to that, there's going to be no reason to be afraid. But one of the things you really have to watch out for, two things that want to come up here that you really kind of have to watch out for, and I guess it's kind of three. How do I want to talk about this? So the Six of Pentacles it's about that equal give and take. You need to watch out for old habits returning where they are not necessarily giving you equal give and take. And if they do not respect your boundaries or your needs, you have to be prepared to gently walk away. Okay, you have to be prepared to gently walk away. That's the tough part here. This is a person who isn't healed, who is still feeling a lot of general pain from this ending, not even speaking to what's happening with the third party. Their manifestation energy is coming up, but their fear is still there, and they are getting triggered because you are starting to work on them again. And by that, I mean you're starting to make their pain from previous times fall away, and that is a trigger because they remember this from last time. They go, oh, hold on, what does this turn into? Because they're not taking a look at the big picture, and they are trying to control it. The King of Wands is that feeling of arrogance and control. The King of Swords, and these are both unbalanced versions here in reverse. You've got arrogance and control over here, and you've got, I'm good enough to not have to look at this big picture and build a strategy. And we already know that that is not true. So it is a matter of, definitely there's a need to step back and look at the big picture. So you've got somebody here who's got multiple kings in reverse, a lot of masculine energy that is not in balance, and that's going to be, they're going to be scared, they're going to have a tendency to bail again, they're going to be triggered, they're going to not necessarily want to treat you evenly. So you are going to have to establish these boundaries gently, but figure out for yourself first where those boundaries are. So I understand that this does not give you a simple solution as to how do I respond to this person that I'm in a communication with, but it should give you an idea of kind of what else is going on there. So let's get you some practical experience or practical advice. in this column. It's about what is it that you should really be focused on. That's always what we want, but also practical advice. What do you do? What do you do in this situation? Okay, 5 of spirals, easy does it. Let them, okay, so let them lead, but not really. How can I describe that? It's let them lead, but make sure that they stay within the lines. They're not allowed to treat you poorly. They're not allowed to, they're allowed to bail. They're allowed to disappear. That's not something that any of us could ever control about another person. But you've got to enforce your boundaries. And one of those has to be something around how you like to be treated. I don't want to tell you where your boundaries are, because that's going to be individual. However, the way that you like to be treated, you're going to know when it's not right. And them disappearing is not treating you, it's not necessarily giving you what you feel like you should have. But it's also a slippery slope because it may be getting them what they need, while at the same time not giving you what you need. You need to take a step back yourself, evaluate that and say, is this about me or is this about them? Because when they step back like that, it's about them. It's not about their poor treatment of you. But if they come back in and then say, oh, everything's just going to be fine, you might invoke, nope, I've got some boundaries and you can't seem to respect them. So you're going to stay at arm's length, and you don't have to say it in those words, but there's a very easy does it gentle sort of, don't let them have any traction in an argument sort of energy. That was a mouthful, but that's what's happening here. This is the opposite of struggle. It is the opposite of pushing. It is the opposite of driving towards something and fighting against something. It's very just kind of letting it roll. You don't know how far they're willing to go in their unhealed state. And as you're the only one that's going to be able to tell when you hit a limit yourself, that's just kind of what you have to go by. Go by your feel for not how it feels for them, but how it feels for you. You may be very adept at being able to empathetically feel what they're feeling. Make sure that you're able to extend that same empathy to yourself to make sure that you're not overextending your own boundaries. But you have some new perspectives on that very thing. So with the Hanged Man here, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that you spent this time in separation wisely, and there's been a lot of learning. You have done a lot of healing. Make sure you take some time to look at the progress that you've made. You've made a lot of healing, but I also see that there's been a bit of a surprise where you just didn't expect this to hit you as hard as it did. These are all things that you need to be aware of as you're building your boundaries and just be acknowledging within yourself, because otherwise they can kind of surprise you and allow you to get taken advantage of a little bit. But you're a lot less likely because of this healing. You're not done healing, but you've done a lot. Because of that healing that you've already done, you're a lot more in a position. You've done a lot of movement in particularly areas of the big three. So your fears of abandonment, rejection, betrayal just aren't what they were because you've had some time to move around in those feelings and to say, this either fits me or it really doesn't, This is really about knowing yourself and understanding with every line of this communication, whether it's verbal or in text, or what happens here, whether you're just looking into each other's eyes. With every single moment that passes, you're assessing within yourself what that right next step is. And I don't mean in the way of overthinking it, but just making sure that you allow yourself to move in the direction that you want to move in. So we've got the 10 of Pentacles here, which says you are... Okay, and the 10 of Cups. You become very much what this person already kind of thinks you are. So we've seen the Queen of Pentacles, the 8 of Pentacles, and the 9 of Pentacles come out to reflect your energy on a regular basis. And it often has to do with your person looking up to you and seeing you in a way that maybe you don't even see yourself. This has you moving into that direction that they have often seen you, so that maybe it's more... you being able to see yourself there as well. The King of Cups it's integrity, but like this is integrity within yourself. This is your own masculine energy saying, I am completely able to love. I am also completely able to put a boundary on that and to not give my entire self away. And what comes from that is a beautiful material experience, as well as this feeling of having both feet on the ground, which is super convenient given the other things that you're dealing with that kind of want to make you feel a little more shaken up and discombobulated. We know that in like the previous readings, we've been seeing you had something that you are confronting, that it's time to confront. You've been putting it off, and it's going to make you feel a little discombobulated and unbalanced. But this energy here says that deep down, you are actually what this person thinks you are, and you are a lot more together than in this environment, or you need to keep yourself a lot. You got to utilize that and that healing that you've done to keep yourself more together in this environment of communication, or in some cases where people haven't communicated yet. This is about keeping your energy in line and holding your head high. It's like walking with your head held high regardless of the situation, and not that you're taking away from anybody else. It's not a feeling of arrogance when you're walking with your head held high. It's just a feeling of being sure about yourself. It doesn't take away from anybody else. But you're going to realize that there are some things that this is a feeling of needing to hurry up and heal. It's shame, it's fear, it's sadness, it's feeling like you need to hurry up and heal. I need to hurry up and let this tower fall. And it's like you've got to give yourself the time. One of the things that has really come out here in these readings over the last, I don't know, it's been more than the last couple of days. It's been about not rushing through what's needed from you or what's expected from you at this time. You have a beautiful confidence about you, and you're absolutely allowed to sit and think about it. There's no rush in any of this healing. The rush kind of healing you've already done. This is now a matter of working through some nuances and getting yourself to some next levels, which again, you've already done some of that recently. You and your person both moved together to a next level not too long ago, and we've kind of been seeing that play out. Here, though, with the Venus retrograde, it adds a whole different dimension to it, and we see that the communications are starting to come in, but the fear is still there. So as you're dealing with this person, remember, grace. It's really going to be making sure that you are gentle, decisive, understand where your boundaries are and enforce them. Realize that you're going to have some triggering as well. You're both triggering one another. It's okay. Take it slow. They may disappear again. That's going to be okay. You are totally able to handle a disappearance at this point. You have been there and done that. This is pretty reassuring. I feel like it's reassuring as far as understanding how to interact with this person, but I understand that in the actual face of interaction, it could be pretty tough to figure out the words that you want to use. But this is the tone you want to go with. So glad we did this one. Thank you for asking the question. That was a great question. And I look forward to seeing you again in tomorrow's reading.